Joe Burrow didn't look like himself. I'll be honest here. Like we expect a whole lot better from Joe Burrow than what we saw on Sunday. You typically don't see him make the mistakes that he did. And there's been a lot of talk about, his press conference about what he was talking about, saying like, hey, I want to have fun while playing this game. If I'm not having fun, what am I doing? Stuff like that. People started growing a little concerned. He was saying that there were things in his life that were, taking a toll on him. And like from a human aspect, we forget football for a little bit. When you hear someone speak about that in that way, you grow concerned for that person's well-being. Joe Burrow's been through a lot of injuries since he came to Cincinnati. There's no question about it. He's dealt with a lot. You just wonder about Joe Burrow's mental, and then you look at what the Cincinnati Bengals have done for him, or really have tried to do for him, but at times it doesn't look like they've done anything. They paid his two top receivers. We talked about that ad nauseum. He came on ESPN's First Take talking about he wanted Jamar Chase back, he wanted T. Higgins back, wanted to get Trey Hendrickson signed. They managed to get that done, but they didn't invest in the defense that was really, really bad last year. And they didn't invest. They expected different results with largely the same group, if not even more younger players. But then you put in a new defensive coordinator. This has not been a great defense once again this year. I mean, look, you have your offensive weapons, Chase Brown, Jamar and T, Gesicki at tight end, Noah Fant as the other tight end. But at some point, you have to get stops if you're going to win games. And the Cincinnati Bengals have not been able to do that the past few years. There's been talk about, they bring up Carson Palmer once upon a time. If you remember that name, Carson Palmer was the Bengals quarterback for a long time. He wanted out of Cincinnati so badly that he was willing to retire just to get out of there, because Cincinnati wouldn't let him go to another team. He said, well, screw it. I'm just going to retire until you let me go. Now the talk is Andrew Luck, Carson Palmer, when you think about Joe Burrow in terms of like how much longer does he want to play. I think Joe Burrow wants to play football. I don't think we got to take it that far with Andrew Luck, which was a totally different situation in my opinion. But this Cincinnati organization, how much faith does Joe Burrow really have in them right now? You look at in his first 3 seasons, the Bengals have made the playoffs twice. In the last 3 seasons, they have not made the playoffs, including this one. They just got eliminated by losing to the Ravens. And Joe Burrow, as great as he is, how is he continuing to not make the playoffs? How is he continuing to have to fight an uphill climb, when we get to December? The Bengals, in my opinion, the talent that they have should not be playing meaningless football games in December. They should be playing meaningful football games for positioning in the playoffs. Just if you're the average football fan looking in. Something doesn't sit right there. Something is, and notoriously, the owner's been called cheap. They try to cut corners, with the franchise. People talk about where they practice. They practice basically on like a field by the highway. There's no like top tier facility or anything like that for the Bengals. It's very like average at best. You hear all these things about this organization over the years, and you can go back to the Carson Palmer years, same owner, same MO, same stories. So I mean, last year the talk was, are the Bengals wasting Joe Burrow? Because Joe Burrow had one of the best individual quarterback seasons that anyone has ever had, and the Bengals still didn't make the playoffs. So you just wonder, does Joe Burrow want out? Does he want to get traded? Does he want to like step away until the Bengals trade him like Carson Palmer once upon a time tried? If I am Joe Burrow, honestly, I go to my man Jamar Chase and say, look, man, let's both request a trade to get out of here. Let's be a package deal for another team. Now, could it actually happen? Obviously cap space and all that, roster construction, that would be a big factor into it. But I'm sure every team, basically every team that is in dire need of a quarterback, you think about the Arizona Cardinals, you think about the Raiders, you think about the Pittsburgh Steelers, because you don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do after this season. The New York Jets, with all the first round picks that they got from trading Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner, there's different scenarios where we can see a crazy trade to get Joe Burrow out of Cincinnati. Do I think it's going to happen this offseason? I don't think so. But going forward, if this doesn't change, how much is Joe Burrow going to continue to deal with this organization? Is he going to stick with it, or are we going to start seeing him want out?